The perfect target. The deep silence of space surrounded Jake Carter as he worked inside his ship, the Starforge. The sound of tools clicking echoed in the engine room, where Jake adjusted wires and tightened bolts. His ship wasn't flashy or new, but it was sturdy and reliable. Jake often joked that the Starforge was more of a home than a spaceship. Little did he know, it had just become a target. Not far from Jake's position, hidden in the darkness of an asteroid belt, the Hanath Syndicate watched his ship. The Hanath were notorious alien pirates, known for attacking small, defenseless vessels. To them, Jake's ship looked like an easy prize, a slow-moving human ship alone in the void. Drakkar, the leader of the Hanath crew, grinned as he studied the human ship on his monitor. "This one will be simple," he hissed to his crew. "Humans are weak. Take what we need and leave him stranded." His crew cheered quietly as they activated their stealth mode, slowly moving their ship closer to the Starforge. Jake, unaware of the danger, hummed to himself while finishing his repairs. A mug of coffee sat on a small table next to him, steam rising into the air. He grabbed it, took a sip, and sighed in satisfaction. "Perfect," he muttered. Then the ship's eye, a calm female voice, interrupted. "Jake, I'm detecting an unknown vessel approaching. Its signature matches pirate profiles." Jake froze for a moment, his hand gripping the mug tightly. "Pirates," he repeated, his voice calm. "Well, that's just great. Can you identify them?" "Hanath Syndicate," the eye replied. "They are known for hijacking and looting small ships like ours." Jake set his coffee down and leaned back in his chair, a small smirk forming on his face. "They chose the wrong ship," he said under his breath. "Activate countermeasures, but keep it subtle. Let's see what these Hanath think they're getting into." Outside, the Hanath ship closed in, disabling the Starforge's external sensors and locking onto its airlock. Drakkar gave the order to board. No resistance expected. Just a human mechanic. Take everything valuable and leave no trace. The Hanath pirates suited up, their sharp claws clicking against the metal floor as they moved. They carried plasma rifles, ready for a fight, though they didn't think they'd need them. After all, humans were easy prey. As they breached the airlock, Jake watched the surveillance feed from his hidden control room. The Hanath entered his ship cautiously, their alien eyes scanning for any signs of movement. Jake chuckled softly. "Welcome to my ship, boys," he said, flipping a switch on his console. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered, and a low hum filled the air. The Hanath paused, their weapons raised. "What's happening?" one of them growled. "Just a little surprise," Jake muttered, pressing another button. Hidden turrets slid out from the walls, targeting the intruders. A voice echoed through the ship, Jake's voice, amplified through the speakers. "Hey there, Hanath. Having fun? You've just boarded the wrong ship." The turrets began firing non-lethal stun rounds, forcing the Hanath to take cover. Drakkar snarled, smashing a panel on the wall to disable the turrets, but Jake was already one step ahead. "Oh, you found the control panel," Jake's voice teased. "Too bad, it's just a decoy." Drakkar growled in frustration as more traps activated, doors sealing shut, the gravity fluctuating, and smoke filling the air. Jake leaned back in his chair, watching the chaos unfold on his monitors. You'd think space pirates would know better than to mess with a mechanic. One of the Hanath shouted, "How is this possible? It's just a human ship." Drakkar snarled, "Find the human. End this." As the pirates spread out, Jake moved through the ship silently, using secret passages he had built into the walls. He was no ordinary mechanic. He had spent years modifying the Starforge, preparing it for situations just like this. Jake's AI spoke in his earpiece. "The pirates are heading toward the engine room. What's the plan?" Jake grinned. "Let them come. I've got a little gift waiting for them." In the engine room, Jake set up his final trap. A decoy console sat in the center of the room, glowing with false data. As the XNF burst in, they focused on the console, assuming it controlled the ship. Drakkar approached it, his claws ready to tear it apart. "We've got him now," he said, a wicked grin spreading across his face. But before he could touch it, the console exploded in a burst of light and sound, stunning the pirates. Jake stepped out from the shadows, holding a plasma wrench. "Surprise," he said calmly. The pirates turned to face him, their weapons raised. But Jake didn't flinch. He smirked, his confidence unshaken. "You've made a big mistake coming here." Drakkar growled, "You're outnumbered, human. Surrender now." Jake tilted his head, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Outnumbered? Maybe. Outmatched? Never. And with that, he pressed a button on his wrist device, activating another trap. The floor beneath the XNF shifted, and they slid into a locked chamber. Jake leaned against the wall, watching as the pirates pounded on the reinforced doors. "Enjoy your stay," he said with a chuckle. The XNF had thought they'd found the perfect target, but they were wrong. Jake Carter wasn't just a mechanic. He was a master of his craft, and the Starforge was his greatest creation. The trap unfolds. Drakkar pounded on the reinforced chamber door, his claws scraping against the metal as sparks flew. "Get us out of here." He roared at his crew, his voice echoing in the cramped space. The XNF pirates scrambled to find a way out, their advanced tools proving useless against Jake's reinforced walls. On the other side of the ship, Jake Carter was in his element. His control room lit up with displays, each showing a different part of the Starforge. He leaned back in his chair, watching the pirates panic on the security feeds. The AI's voice interrupted his satisfaction. "Jake, they're attempting to bypass the lock. It's only a matter of time before they get through." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Let them try. I've got more surprises waiting for them." He tapped a button on his console, and the chamber began to fill with a dense purple mist. Inside the chamber, the XNF pirates coughed and growled as the mist spread around them. One of them shouted, "What is this?" "Poison." Drakkar snarled, "Stay calm. It's just a distraction." But as the mist thickened, it became clear this wasn't an ordinary gas. The XNF's weapons stopped functioning, their energy cores flickering and dying. Back in the control room, Jake grinned. "Thanks for bringing those fancy plasma rifles onto my ship. The mist disables energy-based tech. Didn't think I'd let you keep those toys, did you?" Drakkar slammed his fist into the wall, his frustration boiling over. "You're just a human. How are you doing this?" Jake leaned closer to the microphone, his voice echoing through the ship's speakers. "Just a human. Ouch. You're going to hurt my feelings if you keep underestimating me." Drakkar growled, his sharp teeth bared. "You won't get away with this." Jake chuckled. "Oh, I think I will. Now let's make things a bit more interesting." He pressed another button, and the floor beneath the chamber began to shift. The XNF pirates suddenly found themselves sliding downward as the floor angled into a steep slope. They tumbled into another part of the ship, a dark, cavernous cargo bay with walls covered in glowing wires and humming machinery. "Welcome to the playground." Jake's voice boomed, his tone light and mocking. "Let's see how good you are at problem-solving." The cargo bay wasn't just a storage area. It was a maze of obstacles, moving platforms, and hidden dangers. Automated drones zipped through the air, scanning for intruders. The XNF stumbled forward cautiously, their claws clicking against the metal floor. One pirate spotted a faint red light ahead. "There's an exit," he shouted, rushing toward it. The moment he stepped on the floor panel in front of the light, the entire section collapsed, revealing the deep pit below. The pirate barely managed to grab onto the edge, his claws scraping against the metal as his crewmates pulled him back up. Jake watched from the control room, shaking his head. "They're not very bright, are they?" The AI responded. "They seem to rely on brute strength over strategy." Jake smirked. "Well, let's see how far brute strength gets them." Drakkar, realizing they were being toyed with, barked orders to his crew. "Stick together. We move as one. No more mistakes." The pirates advanced carefully, using their natural agility to avoid traps. Jake was impressed by their determination, but knew they were only delaying the inevitable. "All right," he said to himself, cracking his knuckles. "Time to step it up a notch." He activated another sequence, and the maze began to shift. Walls moved, platforms rose and fell, and the pirates found themselves cut off from each other. Panic set in as the group was split into smaller, vulnerable teams. Drakkar, now alone in a dimly lit section of the maze, growled as he punched a nearby wall. "You can't hide forever, human," he shouted. Jake's voice came through a hidden speaker near him. "Who said I'm hiding? I'm right here, watching your every move." Drakkar whipped around, trying to pinpoint the source of the voice, but it echoed from all directions. His frustration turned to unease as he realized just how outmatched they were. Meanwhile, one of the smaller Xeneth groups stumbled upon a console glowing faintly in the darkness. "This might be the control panel," one of them said, rushing toward it. But as they touched the screen, it came to life with Jake's grinning face. "Congratulations, you found my decoy console. Here's your prize." Before they could react, the console emitted a pulse of energy, temporarily blinding them. Drones swooped in, wrapping them in restraints and carrying them off to containment pods. Drakkar heard their screams through his comms and roared in frustration. "Enough. Show yourself, human." Jake, still watching from the control room, took a sip of his coffee. "Show myself? Nah, I think I'll wait a little longer. You're doing fine on your own." As the last remaining Xeneth tried to regroup, Jake activated a final trap, a massive mechanical arm that swept through the maze, forcing the pirates into one corner. Drakkar stood in the center of the chaos, his pride shattered but his determination unbroken. "You can't win," he growled. "We'll escape, and when we do, you'll regret ever crossing us." Jake smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Escape? Oh, you'll leave eventually, but only after you've learned your lesson." The scene cut to black, leaving the audience wondering what Jake had planned next for his unwelcome guests. Jake's secret weapon. Drakkar stood amidst the chaos in the corner of the maze, his sharp claws digging into the metal floor in frustration. His crew, battered and restrained, huddled together, their usual fearlessness replaced by unease. This wasn't supposed to happen. The ship looked like an old, slow human vessel, but it had turned into a battlefield they couldn't escape. Meanwhile, in the control room, Jake Carter adjusted his headset and smiled. On the screens, he watched the Xeneth's every move. His AI companion, who he affectionately called Ellie, spoke in her calm, analytical voice. "They've been contained, Jake. However, I'm detecting attempts to override several systems. They're more resourceful than they appear." Jake rolled his shoulders, as if warming up for a bigger challenge. "Let them try, Ellie. They haven't even seen the best parts of the Starforge yet." With a flick of a switch, Jake activated the next phase of his plan. The cargo bay shuddered as its ceiling panels slid open, revealing an array of mounted plasma turrets. These weren't just ordinary defenses. They were Jake's custom creations, designed to disable rather than destroy. The turrets whirred to life, locking onto the Xeneth. Drakkar looked up, his eyes narrowing as he realized the stakes had just been raised. "What kind of mechanic builds weapons like this?" he growled. Jake's voice echoed through the bay once more. "The kind who's tired of getting pushed around by alien pirates. You came looking for treasure, but all you're going to find is trouble." The turrets fired, sending non-lethal energy pulses that created electrified barriers, cutting off escape routes. The Xeneth scrambled, their natural agility helping them avoid direct hits, but the barriers boxed them in, funneling them toward the center of the cargo bay. Drakkar roared, slashing at one of the energy barriers, but it held firm. His crew looked to him for guidance, their confidence shaken. "What do we do, Drakkar?" one of them asked, panic creeping into their voice. Drakkar clenched his fists. "We adapt. Find the human and end this. He's not a warrior. He's just a mechanic with toys." But as the Xenath advanced cautiously, Jake activated another trap. The floor beneath their feet hummed, and suddenly, a magnetic pulse surged through the room. The Xenath's remaining weapons were yanked from their claws and stuck to the walls. Jake laughed through the speakers. "You brought plasma rifles onto a ship rigged with magnetic traps. Rookie mistake." Drakkar snarled, his pride bruised. "You're just stalling, human. What's your plan? Keep us here forever?" Jake leaned toward his microphone, his voice calm but firm. "You think this is just about survival? No, Drakkar. This is about sending a message. Humans aren't the easy prey you think we are." The Xenath pirates tried to regroup, but every move they made seemed to trigger another trap. Pressure doors slammed shut, locking them in smaller and smaller areas. The walls shifted, creating a labyrinth that seemed alive. Ellie chimed in again. "They're being herded toward the engine room. Is this intentional, Jake?" Jake nodded, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Oh, it's very intentional. Time to introduce them to the heart of the Starforge." The engine room was Jake's pride and joy. It wasn't just an ordinary ship engine. It was a masterpiece of human engineering and creativity. Jake had spent years modifying it, combining human and alien technology into a system so advanced that even the Galactic Council wouldn't understand it. As the Xenath stumbled into the engine room, they were greeted by the sight of a massive, glowing core surrounded by intricate machinery. The walls were lined with conduits pulsating with energy, casting an eerie blue light. Drakkar's eyes widened as he took in the sight. "What is this?" Jake stepped into the room, finally revealing himself. He stood confidently in his mechanic's jumpsuit, a plasma wrench slung over his shoulder. Despite being unarmed, his presence was commanding. "Welcome to the beating heart of the Starforge," Jake said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. "This is where the magic happens." Drakkar pointed at him, his claws twitching with rage. "You've been hiding behind traps and machines, human. Face us like a warrior." Jake smirked, unfazed by the threat. "Warrior? That's not my style. I'm a mechanic. I don't fight. I build." He gestured to the glowing core behind him. "And what I build is far more dangerous than anything you've ever faced." Drakkar lunged at Jake, his claws aiming for a quick kill. But before he could reach him, the floor between them erupted with a burst of energy, throwing Drakkar backward. Jake sighed dramatically. "Did you really think I'd make it that easy? You're standing in my world now, Drakkar. Every inch of this ship is under my control." The Xenath hesitated, their confidence shattered. Jake took a step forward, his tone turning serious. "I could destroy you all right here, right now. But I won't. You know why? Because I want you to leave with a message." Drakkar growled, picking himself up. "A message? What message?" Jake's expression hardened. "Tell your syndicate that humans aren't weak. We're resourceful, we're clever, and we don't back down. The next time you think about targeting a human ship, remember this day, and think twice." The engine room hummed as Jake activated another sequence. The walls shifted, opening a pathway back to their ship. "Now get out of my ship," Jake said, his voice cold, "before I change my mind." The Xenath, defeated and humiliated, retreated toward their ship, their weapons and pride left behind. As they left, Ellie spoke softly. "Do you think they'll come back?" Jake watched the security feed as the Xenath ship drifted away. "If they're smart, they won't. But if they do, well, I'll be ready." The cat and mouse game. Drakkar slammed his fist onto the console of his ship as it drifted away from the Starforge. His humiliation burned hotter than the stars outside. "This isn't over," he growled, his sharp teeth clenched. "Prepare to board again. This time, we take him down from the inside." But something unexpected happened. As Drekkar's crew tried to restart their systems, alarms blared across their ship. Screens flickered, and the engines refused to ignite. "The humans done something to us," one of the crew members shouted. Back aboard the Starforge, Jake leaned back in his chair, watching the chaos unfold on his monitors. "Ellie, how's the virus working?" Ellie's voice was calm and precise. "The infiltration program is functioning as intended. Their systems are locked, and they're completely dependent on our control." Jake grinned. "Good. Let's play a little game with our guests before we send them packing." He activated a sequence on his console, and a small probe launched from the Starforge, attaching itself to the HFY ship. Jake opened a comm channel, his voice cool and mocking. "Hey there, Drekkar. Miss me already? Looks like you're having some technical difficulties." Drekkar snarled at the screen, his claws leaving deep scratches in the console. "What have you done, human? Release our ship." Jake tilted his head, feigning confusion. "Release? I don't think so. You tried to hijack my ship, remember? Now, I think it's only fair I return the favor." With a few keystrokes, Jake took full control of the HFY ship. The engines roared to life, but instead of retreating to safety, the ship turned back toward the Starforge. Drekkar's crew panicked. "He's pulling us back. We'll be sitting ducks." Jake's voice echoed through their comms. "Oh, I'm not pulling you back to destroy you. No. I'm pulling you back because I want to show you what happens when you mess with humans." The HFY ship was forcefully docked onto the Starforge, its airlocks sealing with a hiss. Jake stood up from his chair, stretching his arms. "Ellie, activate the catwalk defenses. Let's make them work for their escape." As the HFY crew disembarked, they found themselves in the dimly lit docking bay of the Starforge. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of machinery whirring in the background only added to their unease. Drekkar stepped forward, his claws twitching. "Spread out. Find the human and end this." But as soon as they stepped off their ship, the lights in the docking bay flickered, and a new voice echoed around them. This time, it wasn't Jake, it was Ellie. "Warning. Intruders detected. Activating Security Protocol 7. The floor beneath them shifted, and the HFY pirates stumbled as metallic arms emerged from the walls. These arms weren't weapons. They were tools, repurposed by Jake. They moved with precision, blocking paths and separating the crew. Drekkar growled as one of the arms swung toward him, forcing him to duck. "Coward. Fight us yourself." Jake's voice chimed in over the speakers, his tone light and playful. "Why would I do that when I have so many helpful little friends to do it for me?" The HFY pirates found themselves trapped in a maze of moving machinery. Conveyor belts carried some of them away, while others were trapped in containment fields that blinked to life with each misstep. One of Drekkar's crew managed to climb onto a high platform, shouting, "I've found a way out." But before he could move, a small drone zipped past him, deploying a magnetic pulse that sent him tumbling back down. Jake watched the chaos unfold on his monitors, sipping his coffee. "You've got to admire their persistence," he said to Ellie. Ellie replied, "Their adaptability is impressive. However, they're still far from reaching any critical systems." Jake smirked. "Let's keep it that way. Time to up the stakes." He pressed a button, and the docking bay began to fill with a soft, glowing mist. This wasn't the same disabling mist from before. This was a decoy. The HFY, already on edge, panicked as the mist surrounded them. "What now?" "Poison," one of them shouted. Drekkar snarled, his patience at its limit. "Ignore it. Focus on finding the human." But the mist wasn't there to harm them. It was there to disorient them. Hidden within the haze were dozens of holograms, all of Jake. The holograms moved and spoke, each one taunting the pirates. "You're really bad at this, you know. Didn't anyone teach you not to mess with humans? This is just embarrassing to watch." Drekkar slashed at one of the holograms, only for his claws to pass through empty air. Enough games, he roared. But Jake wasn't finished. The mist cleared suddenly, revealing a towering mechanical figure standing at the far end of the docking bay. It was one of Jake's custom creations, a humanoid mech, gleaming with reinforced armor and glowing blue eyes. Jake's voice echoed through the room. "Meet my co-pilot, Big Buddy. He doesn't talk much, but he's great at keeping unwanted guests in line." The mech took a step forward, its massive frame shaking the floor. The Xanath pirates froze, their bravado fading. Drakkar, however, refused to back down. He raised his claws, ready to fight. "You think your machines scare me, human? I'll destroy you and everything you've built." Jake's voice grew serious. "You're welcome to try it, Drakkar, but I wouldn't bet on it." The mech raised its arm, a glowing energy cannon humming to life as it aimed directly at the Xanath leader. The unexpected twist. Drakkar stared down the massive mech looming in front of him. Its glowing blue eyes locked onto him like a predator sizing up its prey. The Xanath leader refused to show fear, even as the hum of the energy cannon grew louder. Around him, his crew was frozen, their claws gripping the floor in terror. "Is this how you fight, human?" Drakkar snarled. "Hiding behind machines. You're nothing without them." Jake's voice, calm but sharp, echoed through the docking bay. "That's where you're wrong, Drakkar. Machines are just tools. It's how you use them that counts. And believe me, I know how to use mine." The mech took another step forward, its massive foot slamming into the floor with a metallic thud. Then, with a mechanical hiss, the cannon powered down. The Xanath blinked in confusion as the mech lowered its arm. Drakkar straightened, sensing an opportunity. "Running out of power, human? Looks like your toys aren't so reliable after all." Jake chuckled through the speakers. "Oh, it's not running out of power. I just realized I don't need it for what happens next." Before Drakkar could respond, the floor beneath his feet shifted. A section of the docking bay detached, lifting him and his crew into the air. The Xanath pirates scrambled to keep their balance as the platform carried them up toward the ceiling, where a large circular hatch began to open. "What is this?" Drakkar roared, clawing at the edges of the platform as it rose higher. Jake's voice carried a smirk. "That, my dear Drakkar, is the launch bay. You didn't think I'd let you walk off my ship without giving you a proper send-off, did you?" The platform stopped just below the hatch, which revealed a long, narrow tube lined with bright lights. The Xanath pirates stared in confusion as the tube began to hum with energy. Drakkar growled, "You're bluffing. You wouldn't kill us. You're just a human. You don't have the stomach for it." Jake's tone shifted, becoming colder. "Kill you? No, Drakkar, I'm not going to kill you. But I am going to make sure you remember this day for the rest of your miserable life." The hum grew louder, and the Xanath pirates felt a strange sensation, like the air around them was pushing them forward. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, the platform ejected them into the tube. The pirates tumbled through the glowing tunnel, which acted like a high-speed vacuum chute, accelerating them toward their own ship. Drakkar tried to grab onto the walls, but the force was too strong. As the Xanath ship came into view, the pirates realized they were being sent back to where they started, though not quite the same as before. Inside the control room, Jake watched their progress on his monitors, grinning as Ellie provided updates. "They're back on their ship," Ellie reported, "but their systems are still under your control." Jake leaned forward, typing a series of commands. "Good. Let's make sure they know this wasn't just a game." The Xanath pirates stumbled back onto their ship, gasping for breath. Drakkar growled, his pride shattered but his fury burning hotter than ever. "Get the engines online. We're leaving." But as they tried to restart their ship, the screens around them lit up with Jake's face. "Leaving already? You haven't even seen the best part," Jake said, his tone mocking but laced with warning. The Xanath ship's engines roared to life, but instead of moving forward, the ship was suddenly yanked backward. Outside, Massive clamps from the Starforge had lashed onto their vessel, holding it in place like a spider trapping its prey. Drakkar slammed his fist onto the console. "What now?" Jake's voice turned serious, all traces of humor gone. "This is your last chance, Drakkar. I've disabled your weapons, shut down your engines, and shown you that humans aren't as weak as you think. If you ever come near my ship, or any other human ship, again, I'll make sure that Xynath Syndicate ceases to exist. Do you understand?" Drakkar growled, his pride warring with the undeniable reality of their situation. "You think you've won, human. This isn't over." Jake leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Oh, it's very over. But if you want a rematch, you know where to find me." With a final keystroke, Jake released the clamps holding the Xynath ship. The engines flared, and the pirates sped away from the Starforge, their systems barely functional but operational enough to escape. As their ship disappeared into the void, Jake turned to Ellie. "Think they'll come back?" Ellie responded with her usual calm. "Statistical probability suggests a 38% chance they'll attempt revenge." Jake shrugged, sipping his coffee. "Good. I could use the entertainment." But just as he relaxed, a new signal appeared on his radar, one unlike anything he'd seen before. Ellie's voice held an unusual note of concern. "Jake, there's something else out there. It's not Xynath." Jake frowned, leaning forward. "Great, just what I needed. Round 2, here we go." Humanity's edge. Jake squinted at the radar as the new signal grew stronger. It wasn't Xynath. It was something far larger and far more advanced. His heart raced, but he masked it with a smirk, muttering, "And here I thought my day couldn't get any more interesting." Ellie's voice broke through the tension. "The incoming vessel matches no known pirate profiles. It appears to be an Imperial-class warship, fully armed, and twice the size of the Starforge." Jake sat back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Imperial class. Great. Either it's the Xynath calling for backup, or someone else decided they want a piece of my ship. The massive vessel emerged from hyperspace, its sleek, silver hull glinting against the backdrop of stars. It bore the insignia of the Galactic Syndicate, a shadowy conglomerate known for enforcing order with an iron fist. Their warships were rarely seen this far out in neutral space. Ellie added, "They're hailing us." Jake exhaled slowly. "Let's hear it." The comms crackled to life, and a cold, authoritative voice filled the room. "Human vessel Starforge, this is Commander Varin of the Galactic Syndicate. You are ordered to power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Jake raised an eyebrow. Straight to boarding orders. No polite introductions. "I'm hurt." Varin's voice remained icy. "You have interfered with Syndicate operations. Your capture of the Xynath pirates has drawn our attention. Stand down, or we will disable your ship." Jake chuckled, leaning closer to the mic. "Listen, Varin, was it? I didn't interfere with anything. The Xynath tried to steal my ship, and I taught them a lesson. That's called self-defense where I come from." The warship inched closer, its weapon systems glowing ominously. Varin's tone darkened. "This is not a negotiation. Surrender now." Jake muted the comms and turned to Ellie. "How are we looking?" Ellie responded calmly. "Our shields can withstand approximately 3 direct hits from their primary weapons before failure. Their systems, however, show vulnerabilities in their secondary energy conduits. If targeted, they could experience a temporary power outage." Jake grinned. "Vulnerabilities, huh? Let's see how they like playing by my rules." He unmuted the comms. "All right, Commander. If you insist on boarding, I'll roll out the red carpet. But don't say I didn't warn you." The Syndicate warship latched onto the Starforge with massive docking clamps. Jake watched as their boarding party, a squad of 10 heavily armed soldiers in advanced combat suits, marched into his ship. He let them proceed unchallenged, monitoring their every move through his surveillance system. "Ellie, lock down sections C through F, funnel them to the engine room." Ellie complied, and the soldiers found themselves funneled through the labyrinthine corridors of the Starforge. As they approached the glowing heart of the ship, Jake's voice rang out through the speakers. "Welcome aboard, folks. I'd offer you refreshments, but I'm fresh out of goodwill. So instead, how about I show you what this ship is really capable of?" The engine room came to life. Panels slid open to reveal hidden emitters, which began projecting holographic decoys. Each decoy mimicked Jake perfectly. Same voice, same sarcastic tone. "You're trespassing," one of the holograms said. "Big mistake," added another. "Didn't your boss warn you about me?" quipped a third. The soldiers, clearly trained for combat, hesitated as the holograms filled the room. They fired at the projections, only to waste precious ammunition on thin air. Jake watched the chaos on his monitors, shaking his head. You'd think the Galactic Syndicate would invest in better training. But the Syndicate soldiers weren't giving up. Their leader, a tall figure in gleaming black armor, scanned the room with a device that quickly identified the holograms as decoys. "Enough games," the leader growled. "Find the real human and secure the engine room." Jake sighed. "They're quicker than the Xanath. Impressive. But let's see how they handle this." He activated a new system, a gravity disruptor. The soldiers suddenly found themselves weightless, their movements clumsy as they floated helplessly. Their weapons, designed for standard gravity, became unwieldy. Jake's laughter filled the room. "Zero gravity training, anyone?" "No, that's a shame." The soldiers flailed, trying to stabilize themselves, but Jake wasn't done. He activated the next phase. Magnetic plates on the walls and ceiling. With a loud clang, their weapons and armor locked onto the surfaces, leaving them immobilized. The leader of the group barked into their comms. "Commander Varen, the human is using advanced systems against us. We're pinned." Back on the warship, Commander Varen watched the live feed with a growing scowl. This human wasn't just resourceful. He was dangerous. She opened a direct channel to Jake. "Human, release my soldiers and stand down, or I will destroy your ship." Jake unmuted his mic, his voice calm but defiant. "You've got one shot, Varen. If you destroy me, you lose the tech I've got on this ship. And trust me, it's worth more than you realize." Varen hesitated. Jake seized the moment. "Let me make this simple for you. Your soldiers, I'll send them back unharmed. But you walk away, and you tell your bosses one thing. Humans aren't the pushovers you think we are." The commander's silence lingered for a moment before she finally replied. "You've made your point, human. But this isn't over." The Syndicate soldiers were released and retreated to their warship. Jake watched as the massive vessel powered down its weapons and jumped into hyperspace. Ellie spoke softly. "That was a gamble." Jake exhaled, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah, but sometimes you've got to take risks. Let's hope they don't come back with a fleet." Ellie paused, then added, "Jake, another signal is approaching. It's smaller, but unusual." Jake sat up, his grin returning. "Unusual. All right, Ellie. Let's see what the galaxy throws at us next." The final laugh. Jake squinted at the new signal blinking on his radar. Unlike the Galactic Syndicate's massive warship or the Xanath pirates, this vessel was small, sleek, and almost elegant. It didn't match any known faction or ship design in his database. "Ellie," Jake said, leaning forward. "Run a full scan. What are we dealing with?" Ellie's response came quickly. "The ship is emitting an unknown energy signature. It doesn't use standard propulsion systems, no visible weapons, but its power levels are off the charts." Jake frowned. "Great, a mystery ship, just what I needed." He opened a comm channel. "Unidentified vessel, this is Jake Carter of the Starforge. You're in my airspace. State your purpose." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a voice replied, soft, almost musical. It wasn't a human voice, nor the guttural growl of the Xanath. It was something entirely different. "Human, The voice said, "We have been observing you." Jake leaned back, raising an eyebrow. "Observing me? That's unsettling. Care to elaborate?" The voice continued, calm and otherworldly. "We are the Arcanists. We are travelers and seekers of knowledge. Your actions today have intrigued us. Few in this galaxy defy the Syndicate and survive." Jake smirked. "Well, I aim to keep things interesting." The Arcanist ship moved closer, and Jake watched it on his monitor. It hovered gracefully, almost as if it was alive. The voice spoke again. "You are different from the others we have encountered. Resourceful, clever, unpredictable." Jake chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment. So, what do you want from me?" There was a pause, then the voice replied, "We wish to understand humanity." Jake blinked, caught off guard. "Understand us? Why?" The voice grew softer, almost curious. "Your species is unlike the others in the galaxy. You possess a unique spark, an ability to adapt, to create, and to overcome impossible odds. We have seen this today. We wish to learn from you." Jake leaned back, crossing his arms. "All right, I'm flattered. But what's in it for me?" The Arcanist voice replied, "We offer knowledge in return. Technology far beyond what you have encountered. Power that could ensure humanity's survival in the galaxy." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Tempting. But you're not just offering this out of the goodness of your heart. What's the catch?" The voice hesitated, then said, "We require a guide. Someone to teach us about your kind. Someone willing to show us what it means to be human." Jake rubbed his chin, considering. "You want me to be your guide? Sounds like a big responsibility." The Arcanist replied, "You have already proven yourself capable. Your ingenuity, your defiance, your resilience, all qualities we admire. Will you accept?" Jake exhaled, staring at the elegant ship on his monitor. Part of him wanted to laugh. Here he was, a simple mechanic, being asked to represent humanity to an advanced alien race. But another part of him, the part that loved a good challenge, couldn't resist. "All right," Jake said, "you've got yourself a deal. But if you're going to learn about humans, you'd better be ready for a wild ride." The Arcanist ship emitted a soft glow, almost as if it was smiling. "We are ready." Ellie's voice chimed in, cautious but curious. "Jake, are you sure about this? We don't know anything about them." Jake grinned. "Ellie, when have I ever known what I was getting into? Besides, what's life without a little risk?" The Arcanist ship extended a glowing bridge toward the Starforge. Jake stepped onto it, feeling a strange warmth as he walked toward the alien vessel. For a moment, he hesitated, looking back at his ship. "Don't worry, Ellie," he said with a wink. "I'll be back. Probably." As Jake disappeared into the Arcanist ship, Ellie's voice muttered, "I hope so, Jake. I hope so." The scene cut to the Starforge, now floating alone in the vast expanse of space. Its lights blinked rhythmically, as if waiting for its captain's return. Meanwhile, inside the Arcanist ship, Jake was greeted by a breathtaking sight, an otherworldly interior filled with glowing structures, flowing streams of light, and creatures that seemed to shimmer like stars. The voice of the Arcanist spoke again, this time more personal. "Welcome, Jake Carter. Let us begin." Jake smirked, his eyes shining with excitement. "All right, Arcanist, let's see what you've got." As the Arcanist ship vanished into hyperspace, the Starforge remained, a symbol of humanity's resilience, waiting for its captain to come back with tales of new horizons and mysteries yet to be unraveled.